All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this village board meeting to order on Monday, September 16, 2024, and ask if you would all please rise and join the village board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
Trustee Shirley. Trustee Bertucci.
Here.
Trustee Grasse. Here. Trustee Tinaglia.
Here.
Trustee Dunnington. Here. Trustee Baldino. Trustee LaBedz. Here. President Hayes.
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We've got two sets to approve tonight. The first is from the village board meeting on September 3rd, 2024. For passes, I will pass. I was not present. And Trustee LaBedz will also pass. Any other passes or changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the village board minutes from September 3rd, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Grasse, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Any other questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And next, we've got our closed session meeting minutes from April 15, 2024. Are there any changes or passes?
I move approval. Second.
Motion by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Grasse. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And next, we move on to the approval of the accounts payable, and I call in Trustee Bertucci.
Mayor, I'll move approval of the warrant register for the check dated September 15th, 2024 in the amount of $3,307,253.47.
Second.
A motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Roll call.
Trustee Bertucci.
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
Trustee Grasse.
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, next, under recognitions and communications, we have a very special presentation here this evening by our award-winning Arlington Heights Memorial Library and their staff. And so this is the 11th anniversary of the One Book, One Village program within the village, sponsored and put forth by the Memorial Library. And so I know we've got a number of representatives here. And I think the spokesmen are going to be Community Engagement Liaison Catalina Shin and Director of Communications and Marketing Sasha Vasilek. And so are you guys present? Come on forward.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Hayes, village trustees, village staff, and the Arlington Heights community, both in person and at home. As Mayor Hayes said, my name is Sasha Vasilek, and I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing at the Arlington Heights Memorial Library.
My name is Catalina Shin. I am Community Engagement Liaison and co-leader of this year's One Book, One Village season at the Arlington Heights Memorial Library.
All right, so One Book, One Village, now in its 8th year, invites the community to read the same book at the same time and share in the experience through related programs and book discussions. Catalina and I are excited to be here this evening to share with all of you this year's One Book, One Village book choice. It's the critically acclaimed The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brammer. If we can bring your attention to the screen for a special virtual greeting by the author herself. Just in case it didn't work, which it's not, I am prepared. So I will share with you all what the book is about. Inspired by the final wishes of a client, Clover Brooks, a devoted death doula in New York City, confronts her own regrets and desires, leading her to discover how to live a more vibrant and meaningful life.
Sorry that there was no British accent, Australian accent, but Mickey Brammer is Australian, based in New York City. And the themes in her novel are very relevant to our community. We thought that talking about death and grief in a way that can be uplifting and joyful and bringing hope to our community was very appropriate. These are powerful emotions that exist in our community, so we thought that it was the perfect time to explore them together. The Collected Regrets of Clover is available in all formats. Accessibility was a big thing for us at the library. So we have this in large print, in audiobook, in ebook, and this year we're very proud to have these in Spanish, Polish, Korean, and we just received a Chinese edition. Because we have because we have one thing for everyone at the library, whether it is a program, a book discussion, a craft, and a special event. We have 18 programs happening throughout September and October, 8 book discussions. Some of these are already going on. One of them is happening tonight. Next week, the community can experience a bonfire at the museum in the Arlington Heights Historical Museum, where they can burn out their regrets. So we have a speed friending at Coco and Blue, and so many other good things that will engage the community without necessarily reading the book, but making them feel that there's something for them in this season as well. As for community outreach, because we're talking about some sensitive topics, we wanted to partner. And our community partner for this year is Willow House. They provide comprehensive and holistic grief services and support. In fact, they do it just across the street from the library at First Presbyterian. We're going to have a presence in many community events that you will see throughout Arlington Heights, like Harmony Fest and the Farmers Market and Oktoberfest in the Historical Museum. We're also facilitating a book discussion with Village of Arlington Heights staff.
For all things One Book, One Village, we encourage everyone to visit a special website dedicated to this initiative at ahml.info/onebook. On this website, you will see a list of theme programs. You will also see a list of read-alikes, resource guides, and an affirmation calendar with inspirational quotes about hope, loss, connection, and finding yourself. In conclusion, Catalina and I hope that you are all just as excited as we are about this year's One Book, One Village. We're very excited also to share that we've had a fantastic response from the community thus far. The Collected Regrets of Clover is being checked out at record speed compared to the books from the past couple years. Besides all the print versions being checked out, we've had to purchase more ebook versions due to the high demand. Some of the feedback from the community thus far: I'm loving the book so far, can't wait to be part of some of the community discussions and events. And another quote: how lovely that you picked a book that is off radar. Bravo. Thank you all for your time this evening, and if you have any questions, we would be more than happy to answer them.
Well, thanks, Sasha and Catalina, for being here tonight, but also for your involvement with this very worthwhile program. I think I must have misspoke. I said 11th anniversary, but you said it's the 8th. 8th year.
No, it is the 8th. I'm sorry, it is the 11th.
It is the 11th. Okay, great. And so it just seems that every year you pick a book that is representative of topical themes within our community and this area and around the country and the world. And so it's, I think these themes that are in this book are very important to our residents at this particular time. And so I'm very glad to hear that you've already gotten a very positive response. And so congratulations again on the selection and with this very worthwhile and important program. So thank you for being here tonight. And thanks to all representatives from our Memorial Library here tonight. Thank you all for the great work that you do for our community and enhancing the quality of life through books and other sources at the library. So any other comments from the board? Trustee Grasse.
Thank you. I do have a couple comments. I have not yet finished the book, but as a hospice chaplain for going on 32 years, there have not been many things I have read that have spoken to what it's really like to journey with people who are dying and to really be present with the unique people we journey with, and then try to figure out what we do with all of this and what it teaches us in our own lives. And this book is really good and powerful. And these are universal themes of being human, of being in community together, but it also speaks to the loneliness and isolation and the need for connection that I think we have such a need for today. So I am so excited about this book. I've been staying up way too late reading, but I'm almost finished, and I thank you for all you do for our community.
Thank you.
Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. I too want to thank you very much for bringing the book forward. I had the pleasure of meeting Catalina at the farmer's market this past Saturday. We talked a bit about tonight, and I told her, to be perfectly honest, this is one of my favorite board meetings of the year, is when we get to hear from the library and actually get our very own copy of the book. I don't have to wait to get it checked out, and I very much look forward to reading it. But thank you for bringing such a, what to me would have been an unusual pick, because as I think you mentioned, one of the comments that someone made was to pick something that was off the radar, and this is definitely not a book that I would have even noticed probably in the library. So thank you for bringing it forward. I look forward to participating in some of the events too, Again, thank you, and thank you to Mike and the library and Greg back there and the library staff for all that you do. Thanks.
All right, any other comments? Trustee Dunnington.
Thank you so much. I was also really looking forward to receiving the book tonight too, and I'm excited about the wide diversity events that you're hosting for it. So thank you again.
Right. If no other comments, just one final thanks for this great program.
Thank you very much.
And best wishes going forward.
Thank you.
All right, there's no other recognitions and communications, so we'll move on to citizens to be heard. And I have no blue cards. Is that right, Becky?
Nothing tonight.
All right, anyone in the audience wish to address the board on items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Trustee Bertucci.
Mayor, I'd like to remove item B, the ordinance for spent grain brewing.
Okay, that shall be removed. Any other requests for removal from the board? Any requests for removal from the audience from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will come back to the board then. Any members of the board wish to vote no or pass on any remaining items? No, okay. Then we need a motion to approve the remaining items.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by trustee Tinaglia, seconded by trustee LaBedz. Do we have any comments from the audience on the consent agenda? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Grasse.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington.
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Mr. Passman, do we need to take up the removed item now or under our new form of agenda?
It's in your discretion. We want to take it now or at the conclusion of the items that we're on for new business, Mayor.
Okay, let's take it under conclusion of new business, if you would then. So I would like to get a motion, moving on to new business, I would like to receive a motion to move up new business items D, E, F, G, and H to this time in the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Tinaglia.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Schwingbeck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next item to consider then would be the appointment of Michael Whiskey to the Building Code Review Board, and I call on trustee LaBedz.
Thank you.
Got it?
Yeah. I move now, as I did earlier, to concur in the mayor's appointment of Michael Whiskey for appointment to the Board Code of Review Electrical with a term ending April 30th, 2027.
Second.
Motion by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Tinaglia. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Michael, you're still here. There you are. If you'd come to the podium if you would, and we'll make it official. If you just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your full name,
I, Michael Whiskey,
having been appointed to the office of Building Code Review Board,
having been appointed to
the office of Building Code Review
the
Board,
Office of Building and Review Code,
Building Code Review Board.
Building Code Review Board.
There you go. This is the hardest thing you're going to have to do. in the village of Arlington Heights,
in the village of Arlington Heights,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will
support the Constitution
support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
to the office to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, we know you will. Come forward if you would. I'm going to present you with the village logo pin to wear proudly as a member of our boards and commissions, and then please take your oath to sign with our village clerk. So thanks again, Michael.
Thank you.
And now I should tell you that we're not going to swear these individuals in, but I would like to introduce them to you. We'll first take the motions, but these are 4 new members of the Metropolis Performing Arts Center Board of Directors, including a new president. And so these are very important appointments. These are village appointments. The village gets to appoint 5 members of the now 15-member Metropolis Performing Arts Center Board of Directors. And so these are 4 of those 5. And so we're very pleased that these individuals have come forward, and I think they're going to do great things for a great entity within our community. So with that, let me just entertain the motions, and then we'll bring them forward for just to introduce themselves to the community. And the first motion was by Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move, as I did earlier this evening, to concur in the mayor's appointment of Jill Geimer for appointment to the Performing Arts Metropolis Board of Directors as president with a term ending September 16th, 2027.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next was by Trustee Grasse.
I move to concur in the mayor's appointment of Dave Konicki for appointment to the Performing Arts Metropolis Board of Directors member, term ending September 16th, 2027.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Grasse, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, Trustee Bertucci.
Mayor, I move to concur in the mayor's appointment of Susan Thompson for appointment to the Performing Arts Metropolis Board of Directors member, term ending September 16th, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck. Questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And finally, Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. I move to concur in the mayor's appointment of Jeff Heislop for appointment to the Performing Arts Metropolis Board of Directors member with a term ending September 16th, 2025.
Second.
Motion by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Grasse. Questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, if I could just have you 4 individuals come forward to the podium, if you would. And I'm not going to have you give any more speeches, but let me just introduce them, each of you, to the audience in the room this evening, and to, more importantly, to the people watching at home tonight and then throughout the next couple of weeks. First, as president, is Jill Geimer. Jill, just raise your hand, wave. There you go. And then Jeff Heislop, and Dave Konicki, and Sue Thompson. And so these 4 individuals are going to form the foundation of our new Metropolis Performing Arts Center Board of Directors, and we're very much looking forward to their leadership and mentorship of the staff and all those involved at our very important Metropolis Performing Arts Center here in the village. It has been just a great addition to our village for the past more than 20 years now, and we very much appreciate all the great things that it does for our community. And so, again, thank you for your willingness to serve. We're looking forward to working with you. We're going to try to stay out of the theater business and let you guys do the work. And we're very much look forward to what you're going to do. I know you're going to do great things. So thank you all for your willingness to serve.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks, everybody. All right. All right, there is no other, let's see where we're at. There is more new business. I wish there was no other new business. All right, that finishes the appointments. So we'll move on then to the ordinance, the providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds, Series 2024. Mr. Recklaus.
I believe Mr. Keeney is going to handle this one, correct?
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Recklaus. We have tonight Anthony Maiselli from the Spear Financial Consultants, and it's going to present the bond sale that we've had. This has been planned for a while. It's for maturing debt, so there's no effect on our overall property taxes for debt service. But I'm going to turn it over to Anthony and give him the good news.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Good evening. As Tom had mentioned, today we conducted the bond sale for the village's general obligation bond series 2024 in the amount of $18,755,000. We conducted a competitive open auction in which we received a total of 63 bids from 13 different bidders or underwriters. So it was a very overwhelming demand for the village's bonds this morning. It was a very high number of bids and bidders that showed up. The winning bid came from Robert W. Baird and Company at a rate of 3.2179%. The 13 final bids ranged from that winning bid of the 3.2179 to a high bid of 3.2923, so a relatively tight spread between the 13 bidders that we saw today. We closed this issue on October 2nd, and at which time the $18,755,000 in bonds will provide, after all costs, a total of $20,448,524 in project proceeds to the village. Again, we structured this over a 15-year term to come with the debt service coming online, wrapping around the existing debt of the village, so there maintains a flat level of debt service overall, so no change in overall debt service payments from the issuance of these bonds. Bond issuances take some time, and included in the process is preparing an official statement, putting a lot of information related to the village in that document, as well as going to the rating agency and having the rating for the village reviewed. During that process, I want to say that Tom and Mary Ellen did a great job discussing with the rating agency the strengths of the village's finances, and through that process, the rating was affirmed at AA1. In the report, you'll see attached to the letter that you should have at your places there. In the back is the rating report that Moody's prepared, which discusses the credit strengths of the village. Included in this are the strong financial position, growing revenue base, continuing trend of positive operating results, and conservative budgeting from your management. So very strong report and a great sale today. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the bond issue.
Well, thanks, Anthony, for your help with this. I'm very glad to hear the good report of our financial condition, which just reinforces what I think we already knew. And we just have the utmost confidence in Tom Keeney and his staff, led by our village manager and everyone associated with those making those important decisions. And so thanks for your help with this bond sale. Questions from the board? Anything further, Mr. Keeney?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Recklaus, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. This is an ordinance, so we need a motion and a roll call. So is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I move to approve the ordinance, as we just discussed.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by trustee Grasse, second by trustee Schwingbeck. Any other questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Roll call.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Again, thank you, Anthony, for your help with this. All right, we then move on to the next item under new business. And that is a resolution approving a development agreement between the Village of Arlington Heights and Bradford Allen Arlington Heights Development LLC, southeast corner of Algonquin Road and Arlington Heights Road, otherwise known as Arlington Gateway, and the resolution approving an economic incentive agreement between the same entities. So, Mr. Eckles, you want to start?
I'll start just by saying that this has been a very in-depth discussion that we've had in the last few weeks. A lot of work has been put into this by our legal team, by our staff, and by the developer to move this project forward. As you know, you all approved this project a while back, and since then we've been working on the redevelopment agreement. And this is a significant project that we think will have a significant transformative impact on our South Gateway corridor. In terms of the specifics of the two redevelopment agreements that we're going to have before you related to this project, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Perkins.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'll try to go through high level the 100+ pages in the two agreements and hopefully not bore everybody. This is the image of the proposed development. It's a 301 unit, 8-story mixed-use development, 26,000 square feet of first floor commercial space, state-of-the-art development that would act as a catalyst for redevelopment starting along the South Arlington Heights Road corridor. Just to recap, we've been working on this corridor for about 7 or 8 years now, when some of the key stakeholders and property owners in the area came to the village and started talking about their concerns for the corridor, how it wasn't meeting standards, and that it could be a better gateway and entry to the village. So after some interim improvements, dealing with code enforcement on some properties and some short-term enhancements along the corridor, we developed a redevelopment corridor plan that had input from the stakeholders, surveys, things of that nature, and the property owners. And in May of 2018, the board adopted that corridor plan, and that set forth a strategy and identified redevelopment sites for key redevelopment initiatives, this site being one of those. And then a year later, starting to implement that, the village adopted an overlay zoning district to allow higher density in this area and to encourage certain types of development and setbacks over what would have originally been permitted, including wider sidewalks setback from the curb, things of that nature. And then during the pandemic in June of 2020, the village adopted the South Arlington Heights Road Tax Increment Financing District. That sets forth a tool to incentivize development, to encourage development along the corridor. And as a result of that, the developer, Bradford Allen, and their team that actually have owned some of these properties since the very early stages and acquired more properties, partnered with Masiri Rozak Architects. And in December last year, the village board approved the development plan from a zoning point of view. The area we're talking about is highlighted in red right at the hard corner of Arlington Heights Road and Algonquin Road. Bradford Allen originally owned the vacant office building, now demolished. They then started acquiring the other properties, the old restaurant, the Guitar Plus, and also the former Daily Herald office building. So the plan is it would be ultimately a 4-phase development. We're just talking about phase 1 tonight. And as far as project status, the structures on the property, those have all been demolished. Building permits are ready to be issued. The developer has negotiated a guaranteed maximum price contract with a contractor, to build the project, and they're holding off executing that contract until the public-private partnership agreements have been approved. They have their construction financing secured, and that has presented several months of discussion and some of the limitations and restrictions that funding guarantee has posed. The developer has their investor equity that is all funded, and then during the past, probably 6 or 8 months, the project costs have increased from $125 million to $130 million. The project still includes 10% affordable units, consistent with the village's inclusionary housing ordinance. So they are receiving HUD 2012 guaranteed mortgage funding, but that's not an affordable housing tool. That just provides funding for these types of projects. So the affordable housing component is the village's requirement. excuse me, this is the kind of funding structure. They're receiving debt in the amount of just over 72 million, equity of just over 58 million for a total of 130 million. And then over time, the TIF assistance of 17.8 million, which I'll walk through in a moment. So because of the HUD guaranteed loan, we could not have one redevelopment agreement. So working with our attorneys, came up with a very creative solution to have a development agreement with the developer entity. So the developer entity in this case is Bradford Allen Arlington Heights Development LLC. They own the property. They will be holding the mortgage that's guaranteed by HUD. They have the zoning entitlements. So the first development agreement will be with them. And some of the highlights of the agreement, Section 4 talks about the construction schedule starting in October, commencing then, temporary occupancy in as early as April in 2026, and then final completion in July of 2026. The development schedule does allow that to be extended or modified for due course at the village manager's discretion. Section 8 reiterates the mandatory payments for impact fees and also the requirement of the 10% affordable housing that I mentioned. When the developer pulls a building permit, they will be required to pay impact fees to the schools, to School District 214, 59, the Arlington Heights Park District, and the library in the amount of $906,720. And then the remainder of the permit fees will bring that total of those fees up to around 1.6 million. Section 9 is the piece that really requires us to have the two agreements. There's a requirement that HUD has for this loan that there has to be a rider if there's going to be a development agreement recorded on the property. And essentially that rider says that, if they foreclose on the mortgage, on the loan, that there's no other encumbrances in the way, and that HUD's loan and mortgage is primary. And that had some concerns for us, and that's the reason that village staff, our attorneys, and all our consultant team structured it in this way. That section also has a provision to require the developer not to appeal their property taxes below an equalized assessed value that's projected to need to generate the TIF increment to pay for the public assistance. Also, Section 11 has some significant performance guarantees that the developer will have to provide prior to issuance of a building permit. The first is a general maintenance performance guarantee of $550,000 can be provided in the form of a letter of credit, and the sample letter of credit is included as an attachment in the agreement. The second is a $1 million completion guarantee to guarantee the completion of the project, also provided in the form of a letter of credit. And then the public improvement guarantee, this is a normal guarantee that's required of all projects that are doing improvements within the public right-of-way. Most of the improvements are in IDOT right-of-way, but that public improvement guarantee is $463,000. So that's the development agreement with the developer entity. The second agreement, and I'll walk through this now even though there'll be separate motions, is the economic incentive agreement. And this is with Bradford Allen Properties LLC. They are the parent company of the developer that I just described. So this agreement provides the incentives to that developer entity, and then this incentive entity rather, and then this incentive entity requires the developer, who's their subsidiary, to perform all the improvements. So Section 2 has a series of definitions dealing with all sorts of things, including one of the important things is a senior pledge of incremental taxes. So the senior pledges of the incremental taxes are the amounts that have to go to the schools. There's a requirement that the cost of educating a school child that may reside in this building has to be paid annually at the end of each year to the respective school districts, up to a cap of 40% of the TIF increment. These kind of developments don't generate a lot of school children. We have data from the downtown projects. The estimate here would be around 9 to 11 children out of the 300 units, and it may not even be that high, but that's one of the senior pledges. The other senior pledges, the village is doing a $2 million sewer improvement project, increasing the sewer size from 17 inch to 27 inches along Algonquin Road all the way into Mount Prospect. It provides service not only for this property but others. So the TIF increment will hold back $500,000 to contribute towards that sewer project, and then other TIF projects will pay their fair share as they move forward. Section 3 talks about ownership and control along the lines of what I just talked about, that this entity, Bradford Allen, the incentive entity, they're going to require their subsidiary developer to satisfy all of the developer obligations outlined in the development agreement and other performance guarantees. And then Section 4 is the meat of the incentive structure. So the tax increment financing, there would be 3 TIF notes issued. And a TIF note is a note that promises to pay from the increment generated by this development just in this TIF district and just in this parcel. TIF increment after the senior pledges towards these contributions. So the senior note would be $12.9 million, and that would only be issued after final occupancy, so the village knows the project will be complete and done at that point. There's a second note we call the IRR TIF note. So IRR is internal rate of return. So that's a true-up. We want to make sure that when the developer is completed their project, that all their construction costs, if they came in lower, if their initial revenue from the rental rates came in higher, then that flows through the project pro forma. And if their IRR is lower than what's stated in the agreement, which is 11.42%, then that $2.9 million could be reduced. If their IRR is lower than that, then that's the developer's risk. The village would not contribute any more than what is stated here. And then the third note is what's allowed under the statute for contribution towards interest that may be paid for the construction of the project. And that is capped at 15% of the interest and no more than $2 million. And again, that's the third note, and only if there is enough increment to pay for that. Section 4 talks about a number of other things as well, including that the sales tax, not the sales tax, but the tax increment is just generated by this particular project. So in summary, the TIF incentives in the form of TIF notes would not be issued until after final occupancy, so the village knows the project is complete. The TIF notes would be payable solely from the incremental property taxes generated by the project and this particular parcel. The TIF notes would not be a general obligation of the village. The TIF note holders would not have recourse against the village due to lack of TIF revenue to pay the notes, and the risk of failing to achieve the desired level of increment will fall on the TIF note holders. So with that, the team that's been working on this, Hart Patzman and Greg Smith, Finance Department, Tom Keeney, Marion Juarez, and our financial advisors and financial consultants, we would recommend approval of the resolutions for these 2 documents, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all members of the team and the developer for working together on reaching this point in the process. If I could just have you come up, or whoever is going to be the representative, I just want to confirm. I know you've been involved with all of these negotiations and discussions. I just want to confirm that what Mr. Perkins just enumerated is representative of your agreement.
He actually did a wonderful job going through the ins and outs of this, both of these agreements. So it's been a long slog, and I appreciate all the hard work of this group too, because we're fighting against time. We want to get busy on this building, and as they say, time is money. And so we're really eager to get going. We've got construction, general contractor, and Clark waiting to get going as soon as possible.
Okay, just for the record, so I don't get in trouble with the clerk.
Brian
Give us your
Carley,
name.
representing Bradford Allen.
Okay, thanks a lot. All right, questions from the board. Trustee Bertucci.
Mayor, I have no questions, but I'll, since this gentleman said he's in a hurry to even start work tonight, it is recommended that the village board adopt the resolution approving, I move that the village board adopt the resolution approving a development agreement between the village and Bradford Allen Arlington Heights Development, LLC, and authorize the village manager to execute the agreement.
Second.
Motion by trustee Bertucci, seconded by trustee LaBedz. Question by trustee Dunnington.
Thanks. I have one question. On the economic incentive agreement, on section 4, what is the timing of when you would determine the IRR?
So the IRR would be calculated 18 months after final completion. So by then the project would be stabilized and have, hopefully at least 90% occupancy. And then they'd have all the actual rent rates versus right now their best estimates based on market conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. And we need a motion to approve the incentive agreement. Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. I move that the village board adopt the resolution approving an economic incentive agreement between the village and Bradford Allen Properties LLC and authorize the village manager to execute the agreement.
Second.
Motion by trustee LaBedz, second by trustee Schwingbeck. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Well, again, thank you to all involved in these discussions. You did the hard work for us, and so we appreciate it. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
It's been a long time.
All right. Good luck. All right. We have no other new business except the item that was removed from the consent agenda. That's the ordinance regarding spent grain brewing to be located at 17 North Vale Avenue. And so why don't I ask trustee Bertucci what his concerns are?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. In talking yesterday, actually, to the petitioner and owner, and today talking to the village manager, Randy Recklaus, it appears as if, at least what I'm seeing is a discrepancy in what we talked about at the last meeting and the resolution for the ordinance document. From my recollection, it was the word "must" was not going to be in for the employee parking paragraph, and I'm clearly seeing the word "must" as purchasing those, those permits for the employee parking. And I went back, and the minutes weren't actually clear, but I did go back and review the video of our prior meeting where it was discussed, and in fact, we did talk about, and Charles, I think you even mentioned the wording, and again, not seeing anything about the word "must" purchase. So that's the reasoning, so I thought between the village manager and the owner that we could work that out.
Okay, well, for trustee LaBedz and myself, we weren't present, didn't have the benefit of the discussion, and so could you enlighten us, Mr. Recklaus?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, parking downtown is a complex, inexact art where you've got a balance between the commuters, the residents, the customers, employees and business owners, along with people making deliveries. And they're using the same spaces, sometimes within minutes of one another, and they're used very differently depending on the time of day, day of week, et cetera. And so one element of this is when we have a new user downtown, there are rules for making sure that there's adequate parking for any new employees. And again, it's dynamic. You could have 100 employees, but only have 2 working at a given time, or you could have 10 employees and they're all working all the time, and that would, they all create different circumstances. There's really 3 ways that the village could deal with this. One, we could have a set of rules that are immutable, that are ironclad, that we apply to every business. That would be one option, saying that every business have to have so many permits per X number of employees or whatever. You could have every business come to the village board and come out, work out what are the appropriate number of employees that, or permits you should be required to have, depending on a variety of criteria, and then presumably come back to the village board every time that changed. The third option is to grant staff the discretion to work out those issues on a case-by-case basis. And that's typically what has been done. The way that this particular section of the ordinance is worded is the petitioner must purchase parking permits for employees in the village-owned Vail Garage, but then it's qualified with as deemed appropriate by the Director of Planning and Community Development, subject to the availability of parking spaces in the Vail Garage. The calculation will take into account the number of employees that commute via car. That would make a difference. Availability of parking during the hours of operation, because that could vary quite a bit, of the proposed use. Parking regulations in effect for the Vail Garage during that time period. And then it's added, other pertinent information is provided by the petitioner. And so that authority is granted the Director of Planning and Community Development to work out the number of permits based on all of those circumstances. Obviously, then the Director of Community Development is subject to my oversight, and I'm ultimately subject to your oversight. So if there was something that we felt was being done unfairly or something that was inappropriate any other way, then all of us would be able to weigh in. The reason the word must is in there is the staff doesn't in and of itself have the authority to require anybody to have any permits. And so if you just said for the staff to work it out with a petitioner, if a petitioner said, you know what, I'm not getting any parking permits, we would lack the authority to say, no, you have to get some. And so you have to have some authority in there saying that the parking, essentially you're saying the parking permits must be purchased unless waived by the Director of Community Development is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah. I just think there's enough discretion built into that language, and it's consistent with what we've done with respect to other businesses for many years. And so I'm comfortable with the language as proposed.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mayor, and I don't know if we have the screenshots from last time. The word shall was going to be used, I believe, and not must. And I think there's a big difference. Obviously we have a Director of Community Development that'll be retiring after a esteemed career, and we're going to have new people coming in and out and situations, and I just would hate to see it get interpreted in a different light than what we might be doing. And so I just want to be careful with that. And I'd also like to, if you don't mind calling up the owner, Eric, to just, if it's not a problem for the owner, it's not a problem for me. And I just think we might work this out on another future basis of making this a little bit more of a cohesive, even Randy and I talked about this, that it's very subjective and we need to clean it up, so to speak. That's for the future, cleaning up. But tonight, I'd like to make sure that the owner is comfortable with how this reads.
Well, and first of all, I think the minutes from tonight will reflect the explanation of the discretion that is provided by this language through the village manager and the director, regardless of who that is. And so, again, I'm comfortable with it, but Mr. Eckles.
I was just going to, Mr. Passman, I think all these, as lawyers always teach us words matter, and I've been, over the years, told different lawyers whether to use may, shall, or must in different contexts, and this situation was no different. I don't know if
Happy to. Thank you, Manager Eckles. Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. In a nutshell, use of the word must in this ordinance is something that our office did, taking the direction from the last meeting, and as we always do, trying to write an ordinance as best we can to convey the will of the board as we understand it. There is legion of writing by legal writing scholars, particularly over the last handful of years, pushing against the use of the word shall and toward other words. I will not repeat all they have written, but the Cliff Notes version is that shall actually has many different meanings depending on context. And so we at our firm try to avoid the word shall to the greatest extent possible. It is my belief, and I believe it is enforceable, that in this context, what is intended here is must is a requirement. And another way to read this provision is that the applicant is required to purchase parking permits, et cetera, as determined by the Community Development Director. I believe that it was your intent 2 weeks ago. I believe that the language, that the condition that came out of the Planning Commission did have the word shall in it. Trustee Bertucci, I pulled up the staff report from 2 weeks ago, and you're relaying it correctly. And it was our office's recommendation to refine that language a little bit. Ultimately, it's your ordinance. You can have it read however you want to. But it's my legal advice that we try to avoid the word shall in our ordinances to the extent we can.
Okay, so,
Go ahead.
so Mayor, I guess what I'm saying is that since we did tweak it and that was not what was agreed, I just think that we should have the owner have an opportunity to just speak out on the tweak, so to speak, to see if he is still comfortable with it, or if there's any comments.
Okay, Mr. Lampkins.
Thank you. Do I have to, Eric Lampkins, I have to say that. I guess it's hard for me to take in and say how comfortable I am with that verbiage still, only because the way, and unless somebody can clarify this to me, if I have 20 employees and they're all clocking in at 5 o'clock at night, and I must buy them parking passes when they can park for free, and that can just be deemed by somebody without my input, there's no collaboration, there's no consideration of the fact that they could park there for free, that's where my concern comes in. I mean, I understand how the parking garage works, but again, it's if you're going to tell me that no, that's not the case, that we're not going to require somebody that's clocking in at 5 o'clock every night to work. I mean, we're clearly establishing hours well after the parking garage requires permits. As long as I'm given the confidence to know that I'm not going to be handed a thing saying you're going to have to spend $200 a month on parking, then yes, I'm okay with that. But if the way it's written today, yes, somebody new could come in and say, hey, we see this new brewery, or this says I get to dictate that they have to have parking passes for all the employees. They have none. We're going to make them get them. And that's my concern.
Okay, Mr.
If I could jump in. No, and I appreciate your concern. What I can tell you is, again, the new person is working under my direction and authority, and I'm working under the board's authority. So the intent is not for a new person to come in and by fiat just say, now you have to be subject to other rules. I mean, as it says in the ordinance, and other pertinent information is provided by the petitioner. And the idea is for this to be a discussion where every business is a little bit different, and every business has a different relationship with, when their employees come in, how long they stay, what type of business it is. And so the idea is to make this an interactive process. Ultimately, the Director of Community Development gets to make the decision under our general direction, but the intent is for that to be after input and discussion with you to make sure that, we're taking into everything you're bringing into account, as well as being fair with what we're requiring of other similar businesses with similar hours and similar numbers of employees.
Okay.
But that's the idea.
Got it.
If I could add just a bit of clarity, there are at least 14 restaurants that have some kind of condition like this. Some actually have a number in them, which we've tried to get away from. I don't want to say names of the restaurant, but one has a requirement for 20. And last year, the peak that they purchased was 4. So, there's no intent to try to make a business, purchase more than they need. We don't want to, obligate the garage. We want for that space as well. Then we couldn't allow others to use it. So there's lots of them that have numbers in there, and they're not purchasing anywhere close to the numbers that are in their respective approvals. And that's why we've got away from the numbers. And right now we allow free parking from noon onwards. In 30 years' time, the garage may have to be a full pay garage, who knows? And then anyone who goes in the garage may have to pay if we get so popular downtown. There's all sorts of ways the garage could go. And the intent of the ordinance was, or the recommendation was to have some flexibility there from both sides.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, thanks, Mr.
Thank you.
Lampkins. Any further questions or comments from the board?
Again, as long as Eric's comfortable and, that I'm comfortable, I just thought that since there was a change in language from what we initially discussed and kind of agreed upon, that all parties make sure they were comfortable. Eric reached out to me, and I said I'd be happy to pull it from the consent agenda, so thank you.
Okay, anything further from the board? Trustee Grasse.
Thank you. Manager Reckless, I just want to say, of the 3 choices you gave us, I prefer the third one, where we really allow it to be interactive with village staff and the petitioner, and allow that sort of communication to happen on a need basis for each particular business. So that would be my choice for the third. And I do appreciate this conversation, just to clarify for you and also make sure that what you need is available, but then there's that communication together. So I'm fine with this new ordinance as is now.
Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. And as Mayor Hayes said, I wasn't there at the discussion 2 weeks ago, but as I read this, this section, to me, that second sentence about the calculation will take into account, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and other pertinent information, which the petitioner would supply, to me, reads as the flexibility that is being requested for this particular situation. And it's not just, I'm not just focusing on the word must in the first sentence, but the second sentence is the clarifying sentence. That's how I read it.
Okay, anything else on the board? Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
I move to approve the ordinance on spent grain brewing.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Grasse, second by Trustee Schwingbeck. Anything else from the board or the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Grasse,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes?
Trustee Dunnington,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Congratulations, Eric. Looking forward to this new business in downtown. All right, there's no other new business. Any other items to come before the board?
No, sir.
Anything under petitions and communications from the board? If not, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, motion by Trustee LaBedz, second by Trustee Schwingbeck. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thanks for joining us tonight.